What do you do as a parent if you find yourself in a situation where you think that your child might have done something that you wouldn't have thought that they were capable of? Is it wrong to suspect them? Should you trust your child no matter what? These are kinds of questions that were going through my mind while I was watching the first episode of Defending Jacob, the new Apple TV Plus original series. And I think it's a compelling question, and I'm really interested in seeing how this series explores it in further episodes. But before I get into my thoughts on this first episode, if you're new to the channel and if you're interested in seeing my reviews of future episodes of Defending Jacob, please consider subscribing. And if you like this video, please give me a like. I'd appreciate it. So, getting more into Defending Jacob. So obviously this show is a big deal because it's Chris Evans' first really major project away from the Avengers movies. Obviously, he's done other roles. He's been in Knives Out. But this is really his first lead role in some time that wasn't as Captain America. And he's quite good here. I feel like he has this problem in that he has a lot of baggage as an actor because he's played Captain America, because we all know him so well in that role, that I almost feel like he's better off steering into roles that are just complete departures from the way we know him, as he did in Knives Out, where he was playing just such a different character than Captain America. But here, he's a very, very sincere character. He's a district attorney who is being faced with the possibility that his son may have committed the murder that he's been assigned to. And I don't know a lot about district attorneys. It might have been helpful for the show to fill in some of the details. Like, I only really know what I've seen on other TV shows, but the district attorney in TV shows is usually the person, telling the detective what to do and getting in the way of the investigation. I've never really seen an investigation from the perspective of an assistant district attorney before, so that's a unique take. This show starts off, and I think there's just a ton of tension in the way that it's presented because you see these characters, and I like how they set this up because the show starts with this flash forward so that you can see what the situation is going to be, and you see the main character played by Chris Evans, who's Andrew Barber. You see him in court, and he's being questioned by this other attorney, and it sets up what's going to happen, that he's going to be in this position where he's having to grapple with the guilt or innocence of his son of this crime. So I'm not spoiling anything. Obviously, the trailers let you know this right away too, but the episode immediately lets you know that. And that's important because I think that it needs to hang over the audience's heads and have us feel this sense of tension and dread about what's going on. And that's why this episode really worked for me. Because there was this constant sense of tension, because otherwise a lot of the aspects of this episode would feel pretty generic. I mean, they're investigating a crime. It's not a super interesting crime. We just know that a young child was murdered, a teenager, but we don't really know enough about the person. We don't really know enough about the community for this to matter to us on its own just yet. It's very, very, formulaic. But what's not formulaic is the situation where we're sitting here knowing, and this is quite a contrivance of the plot, that he's investigating this murder that his own son is about to be accused of. But knowing that, it creates this dread. You have the sort of Damocles kind of dangling over Andy Barber's head the whole time. And it helps to make some of the more, syrupy aspects of this episode not feel overly just too nice, because there's basically Andrew Barber so far seems to be like a perfect character. He's like the perfect dad, the perfect husband. He has the perfect marriage. The only thing that everything is going to go sideways, and that's what makes him interesting, is because we know that this isn't going to last, and that is creating this tension. Michelle Dockery is playing the wife, Lori, and she doesn't get a ton to do here yet, but I'm anticipating she will as the season goes on. I've really enjoyed both those actors, Chris Evans and Michelle Dockery, in other roles. Obviously best known for Downton Abbey, but I've enjoyed her in a number of different roles. And we'll see what they do with her character as the series goes on. Again, she's kind of in the same position as Chris Evans, where her character is just really perfect, but she's, a great actress, and that sense of dread is just hanging over her character as well. The most interesting character so far from my perspective is Jacob himself, and that's because he's kind of a cipher at this point. Like, we don't know enough about him to know whether he committed this murder or not, and that's going to be the main question for this show as it goes on, is did he do it? And I think that, the writers of the show have said it doesn't really matter whether he did it or not, which I feel is not entirely true, because I think most people will care whether or not he did it. It does kind of get to the main question of the series. Like, if he did it, then their whole life was based on a lie, and if he didn't do it, then there's a certain extent to which they're the innocent victims of fate. But his character, this episode, we see hints of why he might have done it, because we see that all the kids at school seem to think that he did it, and the only reason that they don't come forward immediately is because it's his father investigating the case. And we also see that he's kind of hung up on the insincerity of people and the way that everyone goes about their lives just giving out platitudes and acting, as he puts it, the way that they think they should act based on TV and movies. And, it's always funny when a TV show talks about how people are acting like they're in a TV show or a movie. But still, the point is valid, because I think a lot of the times we all feel like Abed from Community, where we're like, am I acting this way because this is how I genuinely feel, or am I acting this way because of something I saw or read? And the point is well taken, and I think that it'll be interesting to see the exploration of that as this series goes on. It seems like there's some interesting themes being explored here, and I'm really interested to see where the series goes. One thing that I found really interesting was that the series composer, Adi Orvinson, said that he and the director, Morten Tildum, who some of you might know from The Imitation Game, which was a well-received movie, but I feel like it's not a movie that people think about all that often. It kind of has waned in our memory as time went on, but he's a good director. He also directed some episodes of Counterpart, which is a very good underrated show that unfortunately not a lot of people bothered to watch. But the composer said that they were shooting this and they were basically turning it into a Nordic noir thriller for Hollywood, and I think that's a pretty apt description. You see that in the ambience and the color palette that they choose. It has a very wintry, dark feel. There's some scenes where the darkness is a little bit unnecessary, like when Andy Barber's character was walking into the courtroom, and I'm like, why can we barely see him? He's so shadowy that it doesn't really seem necessary to do that. I feel like in certain scenes they could let up on the darkness a bit, but in some scenes it adds a lot of atmosphere, so it's kind of a mixed bag there. But I think this approach really works well overall, because it really gets at the feeling of claustrophobia and isolation that plays into that suspense that I've been talking about. So far I thought it was really good. I'm intrigued. I'm gonna be interested in seeing more episodes. I feel that I like the approach they're taking. I like the production values. I'm kind of questioning if there isn't some kind of bias against Apple TV shows at this point, because they've had a number of shows that I really quite enjoyed, and I feel like they're not getting the credit they deserved. I felt like Servant was really good. I felt like Morning Show was really good. And now I think they've got another winner on their hands, but I feel like people just, for whatever reasons, don't seem to like these shows. But we'll see how it goes. I'm going to be reviewing future episodes, and if you're interested in seeing those reviews, please subscribe to the channel. And if you liked this review, please give me a like. I'd really appreciate it. So that's my review of Defending Jacob, Episode 1.